Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are unpacking a really fascinating and honestly pretty challenging text from spiritual teacher and psychotherapist Anthony DeMello. It's called Awareness. Now, DeMello starts things off with this incredible metaphor. Imagine a golden eagle, right? But its egg was placed in a barnyard hen's nest. So this eagle hatches and grows up completely convinced that it's a chicken. It scratches the dirt, clucks, flies maybe a couple of feet off the ground, the whole chicken experience. Then one day, it looks up and sees this magnificent golden eagle soaring high in the sky. It asks the other chickens, "Wow, who is that?" And they tell him, "Oh, that's the king of the birds. We belong to the earth. We're just chickens." So what happens? That golden eagle lives and dies a chicken, simply because that's what it thought it was. And DeMello argues that, well, almost all of us are living exactly like that eagle. So that brings us to a kind of provocative question. Do you actually want to be happy? I mean, your immediate reaction is probably, yes, of course I do. But DeMello challenges this. He says we don't actually want unconditional happiness. What we really want is to keep our familiar conditions, our attachments, our current circumstances, and then be happy. It's like we're so hypnotized by what we think we need that we'd rather stay in our familiar, cozy discomfort than do the genuinely painful work of waking up. And that leads us to the central thesis of his whole philosophy. Spirituality means waking up. Most people, even though they don't know it, are asleep. Basically, society is sleepwalking. He tells this hilarious story about a father knocking on his son's door. He goes, "Jaime, wake up, you gotta go to school." And Jaime groans, "I don't want to, it's dull, the kids tease me, I completely hate it." The father sighs and says, "Look, I'll give you 3 reasons you have to go. First, it's your duty. Second, you are 45 years old. And third, you are the headmaster." It's a funny little story, but the point hits hard. We are way too old to still be asleep, desperately clinging to our broken toys. Okay, moving into section 1, the illusion of selflessness. If we really want to wake up, we have to totally deconstruct our traditional ideas of what goodness is. Psychologists point this out all the time. When people go to therapy, they rarely want an actual cure because a cure hurts. What they want is just a little relief from their symptoms. In exactly the same way, we cling to this comforting illusion that we're fundamentally selfless, giving people, entirely avoiding the much deeper and uncomfortable reality of human motivation. So DeMello breaks down this controversial idea that all human action, even the most charitable stuff, is rooted in self-interest. He impartially lays out 3 types of selfishness here. The first one is super obvious, doing something just to please yourself. The second is a bit more refined, doing something for others because giving makes you feel good. But the third type, well, that's the most toxic one. That's acting solely to avoid a bad feeling. Think about it. Have you ever said yes to a favor you absolutely hated doing just because you didn't have the guts to say no and sit with the guilt? You tell yourself you're making a loving sacrifice, but inside you're totally grumbling. So his crucial point here is that charity is often just self-interest, masquerading under the form of altruism. Now, before you get defensive, and trust me, I get it, DeMello insists this is absolutely not some moral failing we should be depressed about. He argues this is actually a deeply liberating truth. Because think about it, when you finally admit that you, and literally everyone else, are driven by self-interest, it frees you. It totally flattens your vanity. And even better, it means you'll never be bitterly disappointed by other people ever again, because you're finally seeing reality exactly as it is. Right, so once we strip away that illusion of pure selflessness, we hit the deep psychological core of this explainer in section 2, separating the I from the me. If we're going to wake up, we have to figure out who is actually observing our lives. Like, who are you really? Well, this brings us to the fundamental duality of the human experience. Notice the I. The I is the quiet observer. It's timeless, it's untouched, it simply watches. Contrast that with the me. The me is made up of your labels, your emotions, your body, all things that are constantly ever-changing. DeMello argues that almost all of our psychological suffering starts the exact moment the timeless I mistakenly identifies with that ever-changing me. To really wrap our heads around this, let's look at what the I is definitely not. It's not your thoughts. It's not your body, which is constantly regenerating cells anyway. It is not your name, your career, or your beliefs. If you're a lawyer or a plumber, or you just had a massive success or maybe a terrible failure, those are just temporary clothes you're wearing. They belong entirely to the me. The true observer, the I, doesn't care. It is completely unaffected by whether you get a promotion or lose your job. Okay, section 3, the art of self-observation. Let's see how this builds into an actual practical solution. Because you might be wondering, how do we stop clinging to this fragile me and step into true awareness?
DeMello uses this incredibly beautiful metaphor for it. You are the sky, your emotions are just the clouds passing by. When you say, I am depressed, you're making a fundamental error. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a massive misidentification. You are identifying the entire vast sky with one single dark cloud. Instead, you should say, I am experiencing a depression right now. See the difference? By framing it like that, you can watch a depression, an anxiety, or even an immense thrill pass through you without actually becoming it.
So, here is the formal definition of this practice. Self-observation is watching everything in you and around you as if it were happening to someone else, without judgment or interference. The absolute key word there is no interference. We don't need to fix our negative emotions. Honestly, the trouble is that we are always so busy trying to fix things we don't even understand. DeMello teaches that simply observing and understanding ourselves with zero judgment is what naturally, effortlessly brings about transformation. Connecting this back to the wisdom of Socrates, the guy who famously said the unaware life is not worth living, DeMello points out that living without this self-observation basically means living mechanically. You turn into a puppet. Society presses the praise button and boom, you feel great. Society hits the blame button and you feel absolutely devastated. If your entire well-being depends on what other people think of your temporary me, you aren't really living a human life. You're just reacting to your programming. Which brings us to section 4, dropping the labels. Because to cut those puppet strings, we have to move to this next step. We have to understand that dropping our conditioned labels is literally the only way to avoid the deep suffering that comes attached to them. Let's think about the trap of labels. The second you label yourself a success, a good person, or a failure, you instantly create this massive dependency on other people's opinions. You breed this constant fear of losing the label. DeMello uses this brilliant analogy of an archer. When an archer shoots just for fun, for no prize, he has all his skill, right? He's completely relaxed. But the moment he shoots for a gold prize, he gets nervous, he goes blind, he sees 2 targets, he's totally out of his mind. The skill hasn't changed at all, but the label of the prize just drains his power. Dropping labels is what allows you to shoot the arrow completely relaxed. Now we shift to a really uplifting conclusion in section 5, discovering uncaused happiness. Notice that specific word, uncaused. True happiness doesn't require acquiring a single new thing. No new car, no better partner, no fancy promotion, none of it. He lays out a basic 2-step program to reach this wisdom. Step 1, get in touch with your negative feelings. Step 2, understand that the feeling is in you, not in reality. Let's say you go on a picnic and it rains. The rain isn't bad or negative, it's literally just doing what rain does. The negative feeling, the anger, the totally ruined mood, that is entirely within you. It's caused by your reaction and your dashed expectations. When you finally realize the pain is in you and not in reality, you just stop trying to control the world. And this is because, as DeMello insists, happiness is our natural state. Seriously, just look at little children. Before they get all programmed by society, they naturally possess bliss. To acquire happiness, you don't actually have to do or gain anything because you already have it. The only reason we don't experience it every day is that our minds are constantly focused on what we don't have. We're the ones blocking our own natural bliss with our illusions. So, to summarize the final takeaways from this explainer, let's look at the reality of awakening. When you finally wake up, true happiness is uncaused. You fear no one and nothing because your timeless I simply cannot be threatened by anything in the physical world. You drop all those psychological dependencies on others, and finally, you see reality exactly as it is. Reality itself is not problematic, it's only the sleeping, identifying human mind that creates the nightmare. Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to end on today. You have the choice to drop the heavy, exhausting labels of the me. You have the choice to stop identifying with the clouds and remember that you are the vast sky. The alarm clock is ringing. Are you ready to wake up?